I recently created a toy robot model for a series of Instagram posts and thought it would be fun to share with you the builds. So over the next few tutorials I'll show you how to model the robot, animate and set up for Octane. In this tutorial we'll be building the head and animating the teeth. We'll be using the volume builder, so you'll need R20 or above. I'll show you how you can lower the poly count of the objects so they're easier to work with when animating. Let me know in the comments below if you like the idea of a short series or if there are any other posts of mine you'd like to see how they were done. Please remember to like and subscribe and you'll get notifications of when I upload new videos. Okay, let's get started. Okay, let's bring in a standard cube, which is going to be the basis for the head. Let's just up the scale a little bit. I want it to be about 213. There we go. I'm going to, on the fillet, I'm going to change that to like 20, and the subdivision, leave that at 5. That seems fine. We could first do the cutting out of the holes of the caps that the ears are going to be in. Let's bring in a sphere, turn that down to about 60, and then let's go into the side view, and let's just push that to the edge. And what we can do is bring in a symmetry object, put the sphere in the symmetry. Let's have a look what we're looking at. We need to change this to XY. There you go. So now we've got our ears either side, and we're actually going to cut these out. So the sphere, we're going to up the segments on this. Let's just up it to 100 for the moment, and we'll call this ears. We'll call it ear holes. We will bring in a volume builder, volume mesher, and let's just kind of start putting this together as we go. Let's drag both of those in. We'll put the voxel size down to something not too low at the moment. We'll just put it down to 2. And we'll just say subtract. So we're cutting out those holes. We'll put the smoothing on later. We just want to get the basis of our objects in. Let's call this robot head. Okay, now we can do the eyes. So let's bring in a cylinder, and the orientation, we want it is plus X. Yep. Let's bring that to the front, and now let's look at the front of our model. Now I probably want to change the size of the eyes. Might scale them down a bit, maybe like 45, and the height, I don't know, like 40 for the moment. Let's just position it. Let's call it 32, and we'll just move it in. Actually, we'll move it out a bit. Just so these are the measurements. So we've got 66, 32, minus 52. Let's have a look and see where that is. Just bring this forward. Now this is going to be kind of like the rim around the edge of the eye. So let's change that to 100. There you go. And we'll get another symmetry object. Change this to XZ, and we'll call this eye rims. Let's stick that in, and we'll leave that as is for the moment. So we want that to be a union. Now let's copy those eye rims, and we'll call this eye holes. And then these cylinders we're going to make smaller. Let's make that something like, make it 10 smaller, like 35. And the height, maybe we'll change that to 60 just to kind of poke it out. Can bring that in, and we can subtract that. So we want to make sure that obviously our layering is correct. You want your holes to be up above the rims there. We can cut out the mouth. Let's bring in a cube. Now this cube, let's have a look. Go into the front view. Let's just scale it down to, let's say 50. And then maybe this will change to something like, I don't know, 180. I know, going in the wrong direction. 180, does that seem too wide? That's good. Maybe we'll set this at minus 50. We'll just try and keep all of the figures like nice clean round numbers. And it's too deep, so let's just change this to like 60, and then bring this out, have it poking out, change this to 90. we'll call this one mouth. Drag it in, and then we'll subtract the mouth. Yeah, that's far too wide. Let's change this to like 160. I think that looks a bit nicer. Okay, now we want to do this kind of some detail on the top of the head. So for that, I'm going to bring in a cylinder. We're going to make the height of this something low, like 30. Bring this up, and then kind of have it about halfway. Give it a width of radius like 90. I'm going to duplicate that. Bring the next one up so that this one is kind of halfway again. So this one's kind of sitting on the top line, that one. And this one, we'll make this what, like 60 maybe? And then we'll copy that again. And then this one we'll make 50. Okay. Now this one will just make it a little bit wider. So what we can do is group these objects together. Actually, not that one. Let's call this top of head. Bring that in, and then this, we'll call this light cut out, because we're going to have a light sitting on the top. So that's a union. That light cut out, we want to subtract that. So we've kind of got this hole that the light's going to sit in. Now you can see these facets around here. Now we can put smoothing on, and that's going to clean it up. We could also increase the number of segments on these. So we go to our rotational segments, we could maybe like up these, and that will kind of smooth it out a little bit. But we'll smooth that out with a smoother. So let's click on the volume builder. We'll add a smooth layer, bring that to the top. That really nicely smooths everything out, but I'm going to take that voxel size down to 1. Wait for it to calculate. So there's our kind of initial model of the robot head. So it's pretty straightforward, but now we want to add on all the additional bits and then set this up so we'll be able to animate it later on down the line. So let's bring in, actually let's create the eyes. So we've got these, obviously these eye holes here from the symmetry object. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm actually going to call this eyes. Now for these, I'm just going to change these slightly. I'm going to add some caps on, add a fillet. We can leave the segments at 5 and the radius of 10. And then maybe what we'll do is push those back into their sockets a little bit. And then we'll duplicate that again, and we'll say eyes centers. Don't know if that makes sense. And we'll change the radius of that to like 15. And the caps will take down, so it's not as rounded. We'll change that to 5. And let's just bring that out a tiny amount. So there's our eyes for our guy. Now obviously, depending on how we want to animate these, down the line we might actually separate these out. But for the moment we can keep them in the symmetry object. But it's a good thing to do is to name everything as you go, so you kind of keep track of it. So similarly to the eyes, we've already got part of the ear. So let's copy the ear holes. Now for this one, I'm actually going to take that out of the symmetry, because I'm going to create all the pieces and then we'll make a symmetry of it. So even though we're filling in this circle, this sphere, you know, we've got this nice little indentation that we've created from cutting it out. And what I'm going to do is just take this one, and what are we on? So 60. Let's change the radius to this one of something like 58. So just so it'll mean when we render we get a little bit of a deeper shadow in there. Maybe 59. Right. Let's bring in another cylinder, and then we will change the orientation to +Z. And let's bring this up, and we're going to shrink this right down. Let's make this something like 20 in the height, maybe 25. And we'll just offset that. We look in the side view just to keep all this clean. We'll offset it maybe this much. So that's kind of the center point is just touching the side of the sphere. And we're going to get a volume builder and mesher again. Now we're going to have lots of volume builders and meshes here, and as we go what we'll do is we will make them editable and reduce the poly counts on them so it doesn't get too heavy for your machine, because it gets too heavy on my machine as well. I think in the latest version of Cinema4D there's a way of redoing the topology, but I'm in version 20, so we're not able to do that. Well, I'm not able to do that yet, so we'll go down this route, and down the line we'll see if there's another way of looking at it. So let's put these together. Now this volume builder and mesher, what I want to do is put it under the sphere, actually under the cylinder, and do our position scale rotation. Basically I want these to have that center position so we can rotate them later on down the line when we're animating. So let's put both of those in. Let's take our voxel size down to, let's try 2. Yeah, that's fine. We'll add a smoothing on, but we'll just make this 1. And maybe we could probably change that to 50%. Yeah, we don't need as much sort of like detail as we wanted here. I wanted to get these, defined edges around the eyes. I'm going to duplicate that cylinder, and let's call this, I'm going to call this one edge, and I'm going to call this one peg, because basically I'm going to have this little peg that kind of sticks out. So let's make that 10. And then again, we'll go into the side view. And let's just push this to the edge. Drag that in. Put that in, the smoothing. Okay. Now maybe we will want this to be more defined, because we want, actually no, what we'll do, because we're going to have this kind of antenna sticking up from here. So maybe I'll change the height of this to something like 30. There you go. We could change the voxel size down to 1. Try 1.5. Okay, I think that would be good enough. Okay, so that's 1/2 or one part of the ear. So now we want to do this kind of rod thing that sticks up. Now we've already got these parts. So the good thing with building this is we can use bits and duplicate them. So let's copy that. Actually, let's copy this whole thing. And let's call this sort of ear socket, say, and this we'll call antenna. Oh, I've spelt that right. Let's get rid of the sphere, and then here we're actually gonna change the position of these. Actually, I'll turn off these two. Let's go into a side view again, and let's bring this over. Let's shrink it down. I want it to kind of sit something like that. Then this peg, we want to keep that position. This is going to be our hole. So in our volume builder, we can say subtract on the peg from the edge. And that should give us like a ring. There you go. And because we've used the same parts, we know it all fits together perfectly. And the other part we want to add on here is the actual antenna itself. So let's bring in another cylinder. We'll keep it in Y for orientation. Go back into that side view, and let's change the height to something like 130, and the radius, let's say 10 for now. It's going to be less than that. Change this to 5. Let's push this up. Maybe set it about there. It doesn't need to be perfect. Let's throw that into the volume builder. Make sure it's under the smooth layer, and we've got union on. So there's our antenna, and because we made sure we set our PSR for everything, we know that everything is going to rotate correctly. Now I just want to add this sort of like little cap on the top. So I'm going to use another volume builder and mesher, and then we'll probably start making things editable and getting the polygon size down. So let's call this one cap. And we've already got this cylinder, so we can use that. So let's get rid of these two items, and we'll call this like cap cylinder. And let's make this maybe like 10. No, that's far too wide. 7, 6. And we'll change the height to something like, change that to 10. Let's say 20. Okay, and let's move. We can keep that. It doesn't matter about that because we're gonna move this up. Actually, we should keep this tidy. So let's PSR that to the cylinder and put the cylinder back in. And then let's just move everything up. So we're keeping everything neat. And then let's get a little sphere. Turn these off and we'll put that underneath the cylinder and we'll PSR that, and then we'll scale this down and move it up. Let's have a look on the side view again. Okay, maybe we'll make sure this is, maybe we'll make this halfway up so we can get some nice figures. Halfway up, we'll make this one say 40, no, 30. So I'll do it like that. So you've got something to line this up with. So the cylinder's lined up with the top, that's lined up with that, but obviously you can kind of riff on this and do whatever you want. Okay, so there's our top part. We'll put our smoothing at the top. Maybe we'll put the voxel size down to 1 on this one, and the smoothing, we've already got that low. I think that's good. Okay, maybe actually we'll make that top cap a little bit wider. I can't remember what I did on the original. There you go. So I think that looks cool. So next we can do, actually I think the next thing we'll do is just try and reduce the polygon size of some of these. So what I would suggest doing is saving this as a different version. So let's call this one unbroken. So this is the version, if we mess anything up we can go back to it. And then let's go back and open the original, and this is the one we're going to break down. So I'll show you how you can do this. You can use this polygon reduction tool, and you can find this in here. There we go, polygon reduction. Bring that in. What we'll do is, let's pick something small like the cap to start with. We make that editable. You'll see we've got quite a dense mesh on there. Let's put that underneath the polygon reduction, and then what you'll see is that, oh, actually it's done it very quickly. On really complicated items it will calculate down the bottom here, and then here you can, then it gives you these options where you can actually change the amount of reduction on here. So this one's quite small anyway, so let's just say like 50%. Then we with that selected, we go to objects and do current state to object. We can delete that, and then we've just got this new mesh with this kind of new topology done, and we've got a reduced amount. We've got 50% the amount of polygons there. So we can do that to our other items as well. So for our antenna, let's make that editable, and then let's bring in that polygon reduction, stick the antenna under that. Actually what we should do, and I didn't do it for the top one, is you want to make sure the polygon, just to keep everything clean, your PSRs, make sure you reset, because obviously we're going to create a new object and the PSR is going to be different. So under polygon reduction, this one's already worked it out. See, this one's initially 90%. See, it's a little bit chunky, but we can tailor this to how we want. Let's just say 50% again. And I'm going to say current state to object, delete that, keep our antenna. We've got our ear socket, and I'll do the same thing again. So let's make that editable, and now when we get to these bigger ones, then we're getting a ton of information. Bring in our polygon reduction, we'll make sure it's centered up correctly, put our ear socket in, and see, now you can see it's calculating. So that's taking it reduction strength to 90, so we can again play with this. Maybe I'll set this to 50. Okay, well, current state to object, delete that. It's our ear socket, and then we've just got this head, which is obviously the most complicated part, probably quite a few polygons. So let's make this editable. See, that's taken a little while. It's only, see, we were quite low on the the voxel amount, so it's got very dense mesh on this one. So again, let's bring in that polygon reduction, put the head underneath, and then we're going to need to wait while it does some calculating. You see it's grayed out over here, so it's grayed out until it's done its calculations over here. So now that's finished, and this is ungrayed itself. So now we can have a look at what's going on. I might change this to something like 80 and make that editable. And we've got all these triangles, but we've got to have a lot less polygons. It'll mean that, you know, remember before when we changed views and we were waiting for it to load each time because it was having to work out the mesh and everything. Now it's done. So we've kind of got our mesh is done, it's nice, and everything moves very quickly. Okay, so the next thing we can probably do is actually we'll put these bits together. So I'll just put the cap under the antenna and the antenna under the ear socket. So now, you know, we've got this available to animate down the line. I mean, you could, if we put this in the center of there, we could have moved it that way as well. We could still do that, but I think I'll just want this to kind of go forwards and backwards. But let's get a symmetry object, stick the ear in, not XZ, XY, there you go. And so that now we've got our two ears, or our two antennas, and they rotate. And again, down the line we might change it so that we can control these separately, but at least we've got that kind of set up for us. Right, so let's do this little light on the top. So I'll bring in a cylinder. We'll make this like 10 wide. Oh no, actually I don't need. Yeah, actually what I'll do is we'll create there's basically had a light turning around on the inside. So let's do like, I don't know, let's say 5 by 100. We know this is dead center because we haven't moved the center of our object. We're going to put this light over the top, but we want to put this kind of light inside, like a little lighthouse on the inside of his head. So let's bring in another cylinder. We'll call this one like light pole. Call this one light back. And this one we'll just make like 10 high. And the radius will change to, I don't know, 40 maybe. Rotate the whole thing by 90. So we've got this kind of like lollipop. Let's just change this slightly. This isn't too important. And just so it looks a little bit nicer, let's just put some caps on there. And what I'm going to do is just copy that, move it a little forward, shrink it down, and what we'll do later on is we'll actually put an Octane emission material on here, so it will actually shine. It'll actually work as an actual light. So let's just put the parts underneath the pole. So later on what we'll do is basically just animate this rotating around, and that emission, like a lighthouse, will kind of light up as it turns around. So we want to have the casing, the light casing this is going to be in, and we can use one of the objects. Actually, we can't use the object we've already got, but we have got, let's have a look at our unbroken version. We've got that, we've got all the pieces here, so we know we can bring that in. So let's go to his head. Here's the light cut out. Let's cut that or copy it. Let's paste that in here. So now we know that perfectly fits. So let's make that like 100. Let's bring it up in the Y. Let's change the caps. Yeah, 20, I think that's good. And we want to kind of give this more of a light shape rather than just kind of sticking up straight. So let's bring in a taper, add that on, and fit to parent, and then we can change the strength. Let's say 25, maybe 30. See what that looks like. There you go. So because we haven't got many height segments, or I've only got one, it's actually making it straight. If we had more height segments, let's say that was 50, you see it'd actually give us that curve. I mean, I had it straight before, but maybe the curve is alright. Yeah, let's leave the curve on. Okay, so that's our, let's call that light cone. That's our light pole. So let's group those together, call that headlight. And then let's create the teeth. So we'll do that, we just want a standard cube, and let's make this something like 20 by 30 by 20. I got that right, I guess. Kind of seems about the right size. And we want to put a fillet on there, maybe half that, 5. And let's get a cloner. Stick the cube in that. Let's bring this forward. Now we want it to be linear, but we don't want it in the Y, so let's change it to the X. And each of these teeth is what? 20, so let's change this to 20. Oh no, Z. There you go. Let's position these so they kind of fit in his mouth, like that. And then just increase the number, so 8. So if you followed along with the same numbers, you know that's going to fit. Let's call these bottom teeth. And then what we'll do is we'll copy and paste that, and we'll call these top teeth. But what I'm going to do is rotate that around, so that basically I can apply effectors to it, and whatever it does to the bottom ones, it will do to the top ones inverse. See what I mean? We'll add something on quickly and see what it looks like. But that's a basic model. I guess one last thing we want to do is add on the neck. So that's just a couple of toruses. So let's just shrink that down. Let's up this to like 40. I'll keep those settings as they are, and we'll duplicate that torus, and we'll kind of stick one inside the other. So actually let's just give these a nice even number, let's say 70. So there's our neck for our robot. So that's the robot model. I was going to talk about animation and lighting and all that sort of stuff in the next tutorial, but maybe we'll just quickly animate the teeth at least, which is very simple. Let's just select the top and the bottom teeth, and let's just go mograph, effector, and to give him that kind of freaky chattering, we're going to add a formula. Is not correct. So let's change the scale. We just want to play with the position. Let's just change this to like 10. See what I meant about it kind of being offset? Let's just change it to 5. Let's see what we're looking at. Okay, it's not quite right. What we can do is just move the top ones up a little. We'll move the bottom ones down a little. Then we get this freaky sort of looking teeth going on. Now I think the whole animation, we're going to make it 4 seconds. So let's make this 25 by 100. So we've got a 4-second loop. And there's our kind of freaky teeth going on. But obviously we can do lots of things to kind of animate this. So that's our initial model of the head. So in the next tutorial, we'll look at the body, and we'll see how long that is, and then we'll look at the arms and legs, and then look at animating and doing all the materials and texturing and stuff like that. But let's see how you go with this, and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Okay, cheers, bye.